Just want to go ahead and touch on one more subject. Some of my friends have been asking me about who are pretty new to reloading, and figured I'd touch on this subject really quickly. So of course, don't want to bore you to death. But here is a Remington Factory 223 AR round, and the difference between the AR and the 223 Remington is that they do apply a primer sealant. So primer sealants, as you know, are kind of optional. You'll see them on some ammo, mostly in military grade ammo. And the primer sealant that they use with Remington is this very liquid, very viscous fluid that flows into the crack of the primer. Now, as you're pressing the primer into the primer cup, you do create an airtight seal. Otherwise, you would have back pressure all over your bolt face and yourself when you ignite the round. That being said, moisture and other content can corrode into that area over time. So long-term ammo storage, things like that. There actually is a purpose for primer sealant. Now, us mere mortals in the civilian world want to go ahead and achieve that result, and there's actually a very cheap way of doing that. And that way is using simple nitrocellulose sealant. What is nitrocellulose sealant? It is cheap nail polish. Now, I use it for quite different level of things, for color filling and other custom ARs that I've built, being a Cerakoter and somebody who builds many custom rigs. There's one of them right here, Adam's Arms, mid-length SOP mod that I did. Somebody who builds a lot of custom rigs. A lot of people have color filling that they want done, and of course that can be achieved with nail polish, as many of you know. But the rounds themselves, sealing the primer is just an extra step that I do for my own personal loading that kind of ensures that the ammo will stay consistent and won't corrode over time. So long-term ammo storage, not that I let ammo sit around long enough. I'm definitely a shooter. So the very easy way of doing it is simply applying it to the head of the case after the round has been primed, and then wiping it off with acetone. Now, as you can see, if you compare the two, the liquid primer that they use, if you've ever watched a progressive video where they apply the primer to the cases, is done with a very small needle-like drip device. And what happens is it drips and the round rolls. So it rolls as it's dripping and doesn't have a chance to consistently dry. What you end up with is you do end up with a sealed primer, but you end up with a bunch of gunk on the side there. Now what can happen is during ignition and when your firing pin strikes this primer, a lot of times some of that gunk can come back and stay on the bolt face and foul up a semi-automatic rifle, especially under adverse conditions like full auto fire. So if we look at my version here, it's a little bit more cleaned up. You're going to have less of that gunk getting in there, and by doing it by hand, you're actually making sure that it's staying where it needs to be in the primer pocket itself. I've found that very rarely will this come out and end up on my bolt face. I'll see a little bit of debris during normal cleaning, but nothing that would cause me to believe that it would cause a failure. I know some of Iraq Veteran 88 videos where he's done some torture tests on some Veprs. I know you can see some of the wolf sealant ends up on the bolt and does, in fact, create a stoppage. So there's different levels of sealants, and factory sealants can actually cause a stoppage. But as far as my own personal ammo and what I do for long-term ammo storage and to prevent moisture or anything else affecting the load consistency, so I have very accurate rounds, I do go ahead and seal my primers, and I do believe in it. I have had some Perfecta ammo have a wet charge before, which created an absolute mess in your chamber. And by the way, stay away from Perfecta. It's probably the worst brass on the planet. You go ahead and you deprime it, and you can see why. The flash hole will be all the way to one side or the other, which creates a very inconsistent ignition when you are reloading it. So word to the wise, stay away from Perfecta. So that being said, I really do believe in primer sealing, and the easiest way to do it is just to go ahead and get yourself cheap nail polish. Now, I do let it dry on the case before I go ahead and wipe it off and let it fill in the flash hole. So I hope this tip helps. Once again, I'll be doing a couple tips here right away, and then kind of trickling them in one or two a week, just because I'm a gunsmith and a custom Cerakoter and reloader. So somebody who deals with this every day, and just these little tips can help out. I'm not going to preach or do reviews or anything that would annoy the living hell out of you that everybody else hasn't already done on YouTube. So if you find this informative, please like and subscribe.